Tonight in Democracy20, looking at the work of the CRL Rights Commission, a stalwart of the liberation struggle speaks about the country's electoral system and the quality of education since 1994.
The type of a student we are producing, he is only prepared to go and work for a wage. He is not prepared to work for himself.
And looking back in history, 11 years ago, a horrific bus accident in the Eastern Free State marred Workers' Day celebrations. Well, good evening and welcome to Democracy20, a program in which we look back at the accomplishments of 20 years of democracy in the country. Tonight we'll be focusing on one of the Constitution's Chapter 9 institutions, namely the Commission for the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Cultural, Religious and Linguistic Communities. And our guest chairperson is Chairperson Chairperson If you have any questions for her, you want to participate in the discussions that we normally ask you to do so, please email us. SABC elections, is our email address, elections@sabc.co.za. You can also send us your tweets, #SABC elections. You can also send text or SMSs, 33726. And remember to begin your message with the word vote, and each SMS will cost you around 150. Participate in the show, send us your views and your comments, and we'll take it from there. And hopefully, if we don't have any technical issues like we did last time round, we'll be able to read your questions and your comments on the show and interact with our guests. Now, as I said, one of the youngest and lesser known Chapter 9 institutions is the Commission for the Protection of the Rights of Cultural, Religious and Linguistic Communities. The CRL Rights Commission has been operating for the past 10 years, but very few communities know about its functions. But there have been some successes. The Griqua community in the Northern Cape is full of praise for the CRL Rights Commission.
From the Komani San in the Kalahari to the Namas in the Richtersveld, very few communities knew about the CRL. One group who was well aware of the CRL, though, is the Griquas. When they encountered problems with the return of the remains and reburial of one of their late chiefs, Cornelius Kok II, they knocked on the door of the CRL.
Dit was 'n baie groot gebeurtenis, veral vir ons mense hier wat nooit so 'n groot begrafnis een tyd gesien het nie. Hulle was maar gewoon, dis altyd enkelinge wat begrawe is. Maar hierdie was werklik 'n groot gebeurtenis.
The CRL is tasked with promoting equality, promote respect for and the protection of the rights of cultural, religious and linguistic communities, and promote unity in our diversity, social justice and fundamental human rights.
Hulle het ook die onderhandelings met die universiteit gedoen en hulle het gehelp om die beendere hier te kry. En dan het hulle ook die verrigtinge, sal ek sê, 'n bydraes gemaak sodat dit 'n sukses kon gewees.
The CRL has established a community engagement forum which will hopefully make them more visible in the communities they serve. Ulrich Hendricks, SABC News, Campbell in the Northern Cape.
With me now in studios, Chairperson of the CRL Rights Commission, Muthogo Mkhwanazi-Xaluva. Mrs. Mkhwanazi-Xaluva, thank you very much for joining us on Democracy20. I think before we start the conversation, just break it down to us. What is the CRL?
The CRL Rights Commission was established to promote and protect the rights of cultural, religious and linguistic communities. So it covers the rights, your rights, for instance, to your culture, to your language, to your religion. If you feel that your rights are being violated, you have a right to complain in terms of those 3 sections in your life. But also, we also go to communities to inform them about their rights. We are also responsible for ensuring that even if it's in the media and we find out that there are abuses that are happening, either because culture is being abused in a particular way, because part of it is to promote culture. So we intervene and intercept even if there are no complaints.
Okay. So in the past 10 years since its inception, just break it down to us. What have we achieved? Some of the successes of the CRL?
You see, some of our successes are mainly based on, because, it's not the kind of media attracting stuff. Since most of the stuff we deal with is quite personal, when people complain to us about wearing ispandla, for instance, their cultural observations, it's a personal matter that we then intervene with the employer. So we've looked at those issues. We've looked at issues of initiation, for instance. How do we intervene in terms of the deaths and amputations and all sorts of other things that, winter is coming and that will be happening. We've also looked at issues of language, which we feel, when people's rights to language are being violated, like there's a community in KZN that is Sotho speaking. We have intervened because their children were being forced to learn in isiZulu. So we felt if their, language, mother tongue is isiZulu, we need to intervene on those issues. But we've also done a whole range of work in the last 10 years.
I think the question is, as you rightfully said, it's not something that we know about in particular. Yes. One would always think if you had an issue with a neighbor from Uklaba, for example,
yes,
and the neighbor said, no, it's bad, culturally we can't do it, we would go to a court. But this is actually where you should go.
This is where you should go. So what has happened in the past, that a lot of work has gone into research. For instance, we've done a lot of work on Uklaba, which is a very important aspect in terms of Africans, that if you want to slaughter for your ancestors, that you shouldn't be, put in a difficult situation around that. We've looked into that some years ago, and we've made recommendations to the municipalities as to what kind of legislation should guide those kinds of things. But we've also looked at the whole animal slaughter legislation to say, people are not necessarily harming animals. They don't go out of their way. For your ancestors, you wouldn't want to be harming, a gift to your ancestors. So part of it is educating the broader public about why people slaughter and how they do it, so that people appreciate it. I agree with you. In the past 10 years, we haven't been that loud in terms of what we're doing. We're currently a new commission. We started, we were appointed in March this year, 2014. We're sworn in April, just last month. So our aim in the new commission is to increase the volume a lot. We're starting with initiation. We're saying we're going into the...
I think that's very important, because year in and year out we hear of deaths, we hear of kids being maimed, and whereas initiation is a very important part of a cultural, especially with the closer community.
Yes, but even if you go to Mpumalanga, for instance, and even in Limpopo, a lot of young people are going for initiation. But what we're saying is that it's a very important cultural practice, and we need to protect it and to promote it. However, we need to acknowledge that there are problems, and we need to address those problems. Part of what we want to do is to talk to legislation, which is something we've done. About 2 years, 3 years ago, we've talked about it, we've done research, we finalized it in 2010, but we're not too loud about it. What we want to say now is that we want to be more aggressive about our recommendations. We want to see changes in terms of legislation in Parliament. But we also want to talk more to traditional leaders and traditional healers and say to them, let's have a conversation as to how we protect and promote this cultural practice, because our belief is that once there are deaths, then there's a problem. A cultural practice should not end like that. We want our young men to come back. We send boys to initiation, want those men to come back, and we want to celebrate their manhood. We want to be happy when they come back.
Another, I think, big issue that the CRL will have to deal with, the linguistic part of it. I'm sure there's been, that's probably the biggest, I wouldn't want to say a headache, but that's probably one of the biggest, problems that you probably run into.
It's the biggest challenge in the country. When we have so many languages in a country, some of them tend to be neglected and not being given that much priority. We're very much happy to look at what basic education is thinking of doing in terms of mother tongue teaching, but we're saying we need more. we did some research in terms of language in commerce, because it's also about how you get employed.
Mm-hmm.
You see, if I were to come to this show speaking isiZulu, which is my mother tongue, it would be problematic.
Yet
And
it shouldn't be, because it is an
shouldn't
official
be.
language.
If I'm looking for a job and I say, no, can you interview me in my mother tongue? Already people are like, hey, this is going to be a problem. This one is bringing up problems. So what we want to say is that having 11 official languages has a meaning. It means I should be able to access services in my mother tongue. If I go to the local authority, they should be able to service me in my mother tongue. If I go to a hospital or whatever kind of service, I should be able to be serviced in my mother tongue. And I think that is where you make or break service delivery.
Ma'am Togo, we're running out of time. We've got about a minute left exactly, so let's wrap this up.
Yes.
You've been on 10 years, the
Yes.
Commission itself. Looking ahead, the future, what do we expect? What should we expect from the Commission?
What you should expect, especially from this new Commission, is that we're going to be very hard on issues that affect cultural practices. We're going to be very hard on issues of Uktwala, for instance, and we're going to be very hard on saying this is our culture, this is not our culture. We're going to be very clear, and we need to send precise messages out there, which, although we've done some work quietly, we're now saying will raise the volume.
Because I'm thinking, you know, all the things that I'm hearing now basically are closely linked to the Human Rights Commission, in a way.
Yes. We work closely with the other Chapter 9 institutions. But we're saying, as the CRL Rights Commission, because if it's from the Human Rights Commission, they're not there to protect and promote culture. People need to hear it from us, who are appointed to do this kind of work.
Thank you very much. That was Chairperson of the CRL Rights Commission, Togo Mkwanazi Kaluva, speaking to us right here in Democracy20. Thank you very much, ma'am. Much appreciated.
Excellent.
Democracy20 takes a quick break. When we return, a couple more stories for you. And my favorite one, what happened in history on this day. Stay tuned.
Zimbabwe faces its worst food shortage in 4 years. Tens of thousands have begun receiving food aid.
Finally, some help to stave off hunger for at least another month. Cattle ranching Rishavane is the worst affected.
Trade and Industry Minister Rob Davies says he can confirm that South Africa remains open for business.
The bill will confirm that South Africa remains open to foreign investment.
Igesund is showing his hand in preparation of the Chan tournament in January.
Primetime News, daily at 6 p.m. on SABC News.
Welcome back. You're watching Democracy20. Now, Epanet Mbeki, one of the surviving stalwarts of the liberation struggle and mother of former state President Thabo Mbeki, believes that the country's electoral system is open to abuse and manipulation and is failing democracy. She says it must be changed to allow citizens to elect their own representatives to parliament. Mbeki is also concerned about the quality of education produced since 1994. She lives in a rural home in Glingwane village. This is in Dutwa in the Eastern Cape.
Mbeki, as she is affectionately known, has grown older now. She turned 98 last month, but she remains strong with a razor-sharp mind and humor.
I'm feeling 75% strong.
Yeah.
25% is old age.
Yeah.
I can't help that.
And now, how do you keep strong?
Well, I don't have any particular way of keeping strong, but I think I don't sit down and mourn my position.
Right.
I try to do this and that and the other thing for the community.
Yes.
So I think that's what keeps me going.
Right. In fact, despite her age, Mambeki is still very active in community development projects. She set aside part of her family house for a sewing project which helps local women. Mambeki is also the brains behind this Kanyisa beadwork project located in her village. She sees self-help projects as a means towards social and economic advancement. Mambeki also played a significant role in the establishment of a local high school named after her and has facilitated donations of books for its library. She is highly respected here for her tireless efforts to improve the quality of life of the villagers.
Miss Nomagambeki is everything to us. This school is here because of her. Mother, you've helped us a lot. We have learned a lot.
A veteran of the liberation struggle in her own right, Mambeki is, however, reluctant to express her true impressions of the 20 years of democracy.
It's a difficult question. It's not easy to reply to. It isn't.
Why is that the case?
Pardon?
Why is that the case? Why is it difficult to answer that question?
Well, you know, there are many reasons. Another reason is, for instance, our ANC. We are all people. We've come a long way with the ANC. We have seen changes, either for the good or for the bad. That's why it's difficult to reply.
Right. But are you happy with our country right now?
I'd rather not reply to that.
Right. But when you see, like, you go to town, you see people in town, you hear people talking about their conditions, their situations, issues of unemployment and so on. How does that make you feel?
Well, replying, I say it's going to be difficult for me because I have lived through a number of governments. So there's a good in one government and there's something wrong with the same government. So I cannot have a direct reply.
But she does say that education is one area where the country should have achieved much more than it has over the last 20 years.
The type of a student we are producing, he is only prepared to go and work for a wage. He is not prepared to work for himself. That's why it's going to be, our development is going to be very slow. Personally, I find fault with the type of education.
She also argues very strongly that the current electoral system is failing democracy. She says it must be changed to allow citizens to vote for their candidates to represent them in parliament.
It's a vague thing. We make a cross on our ballot paper. We're a party. We're not choosing a person. We're choosing something that's vague. What is a party? How are you going to explain to me, a grassroots woman, that I'm represented?
Mambeki insists that the party system is open to abuse and manipulation.
And I don't know whom they'll choose to represent me. They may choose their own friends, they may choose their own relatives. I have no power over that. There's one thing personally I still do not feel happy about, is the electoral system. People are not represented.
Mambeki is one of the few remaining icons of the liberation struggle. The younger generation can learn much more from her humility and unwavering dedication to making a difference in one's community. Tammy Dixon, SABC News, Dukwa in the Eastern Cape.
Thank you very much there, Tammy Dixon. We'll be back after this. Stay with us right here on SABC3 as well as SABC News Channel 404.
They found that Cape Town is the best run metro in the whole of the country.
What steps will you take to protect communities from the kind of police brutality?
When I am the mayor, I won't take the R1 million salary.
You guys all look the same. None of you should be trusted.
Catch the election debates on SAFM, SABC News Channel and SABC1, Sundays at 6 p.m.
Welcome back. You're still watching Democracy 20. Now, a retired teacher and a cardiologist are changing the lives of women, this in Petrusville in the Northern Cape. The retired pair is using merino wool and bamboo cotton to create employment.
The Northern Cape town of Petrusville lies in the Eastern Karoo. 70% of the people here are unemployed. These 16 women are the lucky few who have jobs. They have been trained to turn wool into ponchos, mohair wraps, fleet rhino and dolls.
My life changed drastically because I didn't know I could make dolls, blankets and slippers. The project gave me self-confidence as a woman and has helped me not to depend on a salary of someone else, but depend on myself.
25-year-old Terry Davos finished matric 7 years ago. Before joining the project last year, Davos was unemployed. He's now a manager and plans on owning his own business.
There isn't opportunities. I mean, like, there's only the CWP working 2 days work. It's not a benefit. You mean like in 2 days in a month, where do you come out? Here is every day working, and at the end of the month, it benefits.
Zan Spears started this project 8 years ago. Spears buys the wool from her cardiologist-turned-farmer husband.
It's definitely given them more pride. They've become proud women. That has definitely changed, and they are aware of the fact that their things are selling all over the country. I think that is the major change that I've seen. They've really grown. They are more confident.
These products are available at selected gift shops. International retailers also want to get their hands on them. Margaret Mutibi, SABC News, Petrusville, Northern Cape.
Time now to look back in history on this day. 11 years ago, Workers' Day celebrations were overshadowed by a horrific bus accident in the Eastern Free State. A bus with about 80 COSATU members on board plunged into a dam. 70 of them drowned in the icy water. By late afternoon on that day, 46 bodies had been recovered. The bus was en route from Sol Plaatje in the Northern Cape to a workers' rally in Kwakwa. Its driver apparently lost control of the vehicle on a gravel road outside Bethlehem, and the bus then plunged into the Solsport Dam. Richard Newton filed this report for SABC News on the 1st of May 2003.
What should have been a day of celebration became a day of mourning. These are the scenes of the Solsport Dam around 9 this morning. The bus, with most of the passengers trapped inside, completely covered by water. The driver apparently got lost near Bethlehem around 5 and ended up on a dirt road leading to the dam. He seemed to have lost control and the bus plunged into the water. Neo de Tebe is one of only 10 who escaped through the windows.
After a few seconds, I realized the bus is getting full of water. And then I broke open the window and I swim out. Yeah, most of the people are terrified.
Len Slubbert, who lives near the dam, was first on the scene about 5:15. He found the few survivors standing on the roof of the bus.
I went down, fetched my boat. I came back, got into the water, rescued 8 people off the bus that was standing on the bus, and then took off another 5 bodies that was floating in the water. So afterwards you think, what people go through and what it might have felt like for those people before they actually drowned. Very terrible.
2 swam to safety, but the rest couldn't get out. It all happened too quickly. It took most of the morning for divers to attach cables to the submerged bus. When it was finally pulled out, the grim task of recovering the bodies. The 6 mortuary vans, unlikely to be enough. When he heard the news, COSATU President Willie Madisha rushed from Kwakwa to the scene.
This is a tragedy, I must say. It's a terrible tragedy. We were looking forward to workers in our country celebrating this important day for them. But for the workers to come and die like this.
And the death toll could still rise. Police divers continued the search for bodies late into the afternoon. What really happened early this morning may never be known. But tonight, the people of the Northern Cape and the rest of the country mourn the dead, some of the workers who never got to celebrate today. Richard Newton, SABC, Bethlehem.
Sad indeed. And that's the wrap for tonight's show. Join us again on Monday evening at 6:30, where we'll be coming to you live from the IEC Results Operations Centre in Pretoria. From me, Tabiso Sitole, have yourself a good evening. Cheers.